All right, let's get started. Hey guys, well, it's been a while since I've done a presentation like this, so here goes. I'm kind of excited about this. CantoDrills. All right, so depends on when you're watching this, but in December in 2017, I decided to create something new for Cantonese learners, and I came up with this idea, CantoDrills. And I'd like to think of it as a balanced approach to learning Cantonese, or a more balanced approach to learning Cantonese. So today I just wanted to explain where all of this came from and how I would go about going through the CantoDrills issues. So even if you don't decide to invest in this, I still think that it's a good way to pick up some tips or thoughts from another learner on how to do listening and output and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, why did I create CantoDrills? So where did this idea all come from? It actually came from the previous product I launched, or really one of the first products I launched at CantoLounge, which is Authentic Cantonese Transcripts. So for those of you guys who haven't seen this before, Authentic Cantonese Transcripts are a collection of 20 transcripts that are based on real-life Cantonese video clips, and each one of them are about 5 to 6 minutes long, where I transcribe everything, translate everything, and have vocabulary lists and questions and all that kind of good stuff to help you really work through these clips in detail and have some materials to study with. Okay, and I think the reception was quite good in general, and people, I think, took to it well. And so when I was designing that, we have to go a little bit back. When I was designing Authentic Cantonese Transcripts, or ACT for short, I wanted to create something that was balanced in terms of the four skills. By the four skills I mean, of course, listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Right. However, it struck me after reviewing the product and listening to what some people said that this is probably the more accurate representation of what ACT did. Right, it focused a lot more on listening and reading, and a lot less on speaking and writing. Right, I mean, there were elements where you could kind of write and you could kind of speak as well if you wanted to, but the main focus was really on listening and reading. And so what I wanted to do was to create a format that would allow us as learners to strike a balance between input and output, and not just focus solely on input. Okay, and so I wanted to also distill that format to the purest possible format, in the sense that it's all input and it's all output, and there's a balance between the two. So on the input side of things, I thought, well, the purest format of input would be audio input. So ideally, there would be some sort of a Cantonese audio clip, and there's audio only. We don't want any distractions, and it's somewhere around the vicinity of 10 minutes. Because with ACT, we had clips of around 5 minutes, which is fine. But I think that's kind of like a starter. And that 5 minutes was those 5 minutes are non-continuous anyway. They're kind of like dialogues with like gaps in between and all that. But this is like 10 minutes of unadulterated content, which I think resembles more the kind of listening that you might do in real life. So that's on the input side. And so why audio only instead of video? We want to concentrate on content instead of actually looking at what's going on the screen, because I actually tested this out with my other languages. I thought for myself that it's easier to look and listen at the same time, because there are visual cues and all that. Well, the visual cues do help you understand what's going on to a certain extent, but they actually distract you from practicing your listening because there are visual cues on there, right? And so audio only allows us to concentrate solely on content. And also, we want this to be sufficiently long to improve our listening skills and bring it up to the next level. And on the output side, I thought, what better way to practice output than via targeted sentence translations, right? They're not too long, that you'd have to do paragraphs and it's very tiring, and yet not too short where, it's not really much of a challenge and there's no point in doing those exercises. And so why sentences, right? We want them to be laser focused. There are going to be a variety of topics involved, but they would really allow you to practice your vocabulary and application of structures, the structures that you learned in the beginner and intermediate stages. And yeah, so this is an integrated structures plus vocabulary practice. Of course, there are transcripts and answers for your reference. So after you do them, you can kind of like check whether your understanding for input is correct and whether your output would be kind of how natives say it, right? And I feel that this is a really concrete way to make progress towards the higher levels, towards the higher intermediate level, if not an advanced level. Okay, and you get to learn a lot of new words in the process, I hope. Okay, so I want to demonstrate to you how I would do the sentence drills if I were doing this with a different language, and also the passage drills later on. So each CantoDrills issue is divided into two parts. Part A would be sentence drills, and Part B would be like a longer passage drill. For sentence drills, there's a collection of sentences where you translate them, and I'll show you how I would do it if I were doing it with a different language. So for example, step number 1, I recommend that you try your hand at the translation yourself without using any additional materials. So you might have a sentence like this, right? It's not too difficult, but you can really use this opportunity to practice your structures. Okay, so if I'm gonna in this presentation, I'm going to use Japanese as an example, because if I just did it in Cantonese, there's no point, since Cantonese is my native language. So I would translate that, and I would get something like this, right? So don't worry if you guys don't read Japanese. Just know that this was my attempt at it. I read it out very quickly, just for the sake of it. So 台風予報システムは約100年前から使用されていて、香港天文台はいつも台風が来る前に市民を警告するので、我々は21世紀に入るとき、若者は19進行の台風に対してあまり深い印象がないと思っています。So this is like a rudimentary, very simple rendition of that. And so after you've come up with that draft, step 2, you want to look words that you don't know up in the dictionary. I was fortunate enough that with this example I didn't have any words I didn't know per se, but if you do have that, you can look words up in the dictionary. If you don't have that, you can check the dictionary to see if your translations are, if the words that you picked are correct. So for example, after looking up the dictionary, I found out that there were actually better ways to phrase these, or the words that I chose were incorrect, the ones I highlighted in blue. So yoko versus yosoku are different, and yosoku was the term that I came up with in this context. Same with, I think the term I used was like shio. Shio is kind of like in general. I don't think I've seen that used a lot, but maybe that's just because of my lack of exposure in the language. So I replaced that with jishi, which is the second term here. And last of all, we had kangai. Like when we enter, we don't really say enter. The Japanese people don't really say enter, they say welcome, right? So there we go. And so just to point out, when I say dictionary, I actually don't mean, well, you could use a dictionary, but it's actually hard to look words up that way and to actually ascertain the particular word you need, because there could be many words that come up, right? So how do you know which one to pick? So I recommend using a service like Lingui, I don't know how to pronounce it. But basically, this is a collection of bilingual sentences between English and many other languages. I use it very often for French and sometimes for Japanese. And there's one for Chinese available as well. I highly recommend that. Yes, it's written Chinese, it's not Cantonese, but you can still gain a lot of useful insights in it. It's a wonderful, wonderful service. Okay, so step 3, you want to check your sentences then for flow, because after you've translated that, it's kind of like a draft, and they want to say, okay, so does this actually make sense if I said this out loud based on my understanding of the language I'm learning? In this case, for you guys, it would be Cantonese, right? So in this case, for example, I would change just a couple of things in a sentence. So for example, instead of saying yaku 100年 mai kara, I'd say instead 100年前に, because I looked up in Lingui as well, and I never actually seen mai kara, so I just replaced it with this. And instead of saying いつも, which means always, like as in the Hong Kong Observatory always warns its citizens before blah blah blah, I'd say よく, like they it would also probably translate back to always in English, but again, this is one of these cases you can't really transliterate between languages, especially ones that are so different, like English and Japanese, or in this case, for you guys, it would be English and Cantonese, right? So you gotta sometimes just rely on your understanding of the language to make some translations. Okay. So step 4, you want to check your translation. So obviously I don't have a translation. That was just a sentence that I wrote in English and then I translated that into Japanese. But you want to check your translation with the answers, sample answers in the CantoDrills sample answers section. And the last step would be you want to reference the audio, because I feel that once you hear something, you can actually doubly reinforce what you've just seen, right? Instead of just looking at it on paper. So audio is available for each issue that you decide to invest in. So that's there as well. Okay, so remember, for this sentences drills, your focus is on reinforcing structures that you've learned and new vocabulary that you learned here, right, by using it. Because once you've used it, it's not the same thing as just looking at it. Now you have the experience of using what you've learned, and that can really make a difference when it comes to retention in the long run, right? And you can always, once again, reference the sample answers that I've put down, and that's a good point of reference, I guess. All right, so moving on, we have part B, which is the passage drill. It's only one passage. It's a 10-minute audio content. And so this is how I would recommend that you guys go through the passage drill. And I will show you guys how I do it. So for this part of the demonstration, this explanation, I picked a Korean news clip, which is, I think, kind of similar to what we're doing. But I don't think that, what I record is not going to be as formal as news clips. So let me just go there and play you guys a small extract, I think of 17 seconds-ish.
남북이 20여일 앞으로 다가온 평창올림픽 참가를 위한 실무회담을 개최했습니다. 11개 항의 공동보도문에는 남북한 공동입장, 여자 아이스하키 단일팀 구성 및 금강산 남북합동문화행사를 비롯한 마식령 스키장 공동훈련도 포함되었습니다.
Okay, so that's like a small bit of that. And going back to the presentation. All right, so on my first time around listening to that clip, or watching a clip if you have that, and this is a really good process in practicing or listening in general, I think. You want to jot down notes just to, whenever you hear something you understand, just jot down notes quickly, and just to record what you can understand. So you can do this in English. I did this in English as well because I'm just not as fast in Korean. I could do that in Korean, or you guys can do that in Cantonese as well. But with characters and all that, it might be a little bit slow. But because remember, in this part, your focus and concentration is on understanding. It's not on dictation, right? So you can take notes in English. It's fine. So this is what I got after watching the entire clip. I had to maybe go back at certain bits because I couldn't hear it. It was quite fast. So I jot down notes like this. And step number 2, okay, after you finish that, you want to gather your thoughts, notes and thoughts, because in the first time around, you're just kind of like jotting down what you understand. It's a very quick, very rough sketch, a skim of what's going on. And so you want to look back at your notes and think back to what you heard, and then maybe just create like write down a couple of statements. Again, it could be in English, it's perfectly fine, to summarize what you've heard and what you think the clip was about, summarizing the main points, right? There might be other points, but they might not be as important. So these are the ones I picked to include in the summary. And so after you've done that, you want to go back and listen to the clip a second time. And this time around, you want to jot down important words that you can hear, but you don't necessarily understand, but are crucial to your understanding of the clip. So for example, these were some of the words I heard, but I couldn't understand. I don't have that vocabulary, right? So I jotted them down and I would look them up in a dictionary, right? And then after that, I'd come up with these definitions, and suddenly it made a lot more sense. uh, I thought, for example, this word here, 민족공조, was like something about the Democratic Party. I was wrong. 다가온 is a really good word. I've heard it elsewhere, but I don't remember it, so it's a good way to reinforce words like that as well. And yeah, 한반도기. I don't think that's something that you would hear every day. It's like the Korean peninsula flag, like the unified flag of the North and the South. So that was a new word for me, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the words that would really help me understand the clip, right? So after I've done that, I would then check the transcript. In this case, for me, it would be a Korean transcript, and in your case, it would be the Cantonese transcript. Fortunately for me, I had a YouTube. They generate like automatic captions, and it's not always correct, but for the most part, you can get like a much clearer idea instead of having to do all that listening yourself. And if you have a transcript, you can always reference that and see, read the transcript in the target language, in your case Cantonese, in my case Korean, and see how that matches up with your understanding of the clip. And after you've done that, you want to check with the English translation that's provided with the CantoDrills issue, and you want to see, okay, so was my understanding, consistent with the actual meaning? So you can have that. And I think that for me, when I was doing this, I got the general idea, but there were some like gaps in my understanding that I needed to fill in. And step number 6, you want to highlight important words. So once you have the transcript, you can then really go in deep and highlight. Don't highlight all the words you don't know. Highlight only the ones that you don't know and that are crucial to your understanding. Because when the higher you go in terms of level, the more non-feasible it becomes to just know every single word in text that you come across. Right? So this is a really good opportunity to practice knowing the difference between words you don't know that are important and words you don't know that aren't as important. Okay. And certainly you can always highlight everything you don't know and check them up, but just you want to maybe highlight the ones among those that are the most important in your opinion. And last of all, you might want to produce like an oral summary based on what you've read in the transcript. And so you can actually get a chance to use those nice words you've come across in that transcript. For example, for me, I would do something like this. Again, this is a very simple 2-sentence summary of the small portion of the clip, but it's a good opportunity to use those new words. So in Korean, this would be 남북 양쪽은 다가오는 평창올림픽 참여 사항에 대해서 회담을 개최할 것입니다. 동일한 여성 아이스호키 팀이랑 합동 훈련 등을 회담에 포함하게 될 것입니다. Bad pronunciation, but that's okay. So I got to use 다가오는, I got to use 회담. 다가오는 means to approach, 회담 means the meeting, 개최, which means to will start a meeting, 동일한, which means unified, 합동 훈련, which means like a joint training, right? So after using these terms in a summary of my own creation, I will now remember these terms a lot better than if I just like glossed over them. And I highly recommend that if you have the time to do so, that you guys do the same as well. And that's, yeah. So remember, the focus here is, first of all, when you do this, try not to look at the transcript first because you're eventually going to get to it. Try to practice your listening by seeing how much you can understand. And your focus is on listening comprehension. So don't worry if you jot notes down in English. That's perfectly fine. And when you read over the transcript, remember, really the sole focus is just on learning new vocabulary and reinforcing it, hopefully via writing a summary. Incorporating those words. Okay. And I think that's all. Yeah, that's right. That's all the time we have for today, and that's all the content I have for today. And if you guys have any questions and comments, as usual, please feel free to leave a comment below. I know where below is. You might be watching this on YouTube or maybe on the website at Canto Lounge. So I welcome all comments and input. All right. So that's it for now. And oh, and yeah, if you found this useful, please give it a like, a thumbs up. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. All right, that's it for me for today, and I hope to see you guys in a different presentation. Take care. Bye for now.